Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Council of the Town of Petawawa to order for October 6, 2025. Welcome to members of council, staff, and of course our special guests here this evening. We'll begin this evening's meeting with the reading of the land acknowledgement, and this evening it's Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omama-Wanini Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Omama-Wanini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Call to action number 70. We call upon the federal government to provide funding to the Canadian Association of Archivists to undertake, in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples, a national review of archival policies and best practices. Recent progress. Library and Archives Canada is collaborating with the Steering Committee on Canada's Archives in fulfilling the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 70.
Thank you. And now I'd ask all those in attendance to stand if you're able and join me for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the agenda for the October 6, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on any of this evening's matters? Seeing none.
Yes.
I was looking in the wrong direction. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Sorry, I'm just gonna find it on the agenda. I'm declaring an indirect pecuniary interest on the matter of the official plan amendment number 24, Clark 7th Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some minutes to approve. The council meeting minutes of September 15th, 2025. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 15th, 2025 be approved as printed and circulated. Are there any concerns? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, that brings us to our first presentation. This evening we're fortunate to have Nick Gooderham here, the General Manager of the Ottawa Valley Forest Incorporated, to give us a special presentation on glyphosate in forest management. And joining Nick this evening is a man who needs no introduction. Our former MPP, John Yakubuski, is here in council chambers to assist with that presentation. It's great to see you out and about in Petawawa.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, Nick and John, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to talk about glyphosate in forest management with the context of the Ottawa Valley Forest. I'll speak to briefly why we use it and maybe address some of the concerns people have regarding the health and the environment. Before I do that, though, I'll just talk a little bit about the Ottawa Valley Forest. So, Ottawa Valley Forest Inc. has held the sustainable forest license for the Ottawa Forest since 1998. What that is it gives us the right to harvest all species on the forest, but with that comes the responsibility to do the forest management. M&R still reviews and approves everything, but we do the day-to-day management. So looking at the map that's on the screen, the green areas are the areas that, that form the Ottawa Valley Forest. So it's about 40% of the Renfrew County. In terms of forest land, that's about 234,000 hectares that we manage. And one thing I also mentioned is that our management is certified under the FSC standards for Stewardship Council. And to maintain that certification, we get audited every year. It's a surveillance audit, and then every 5 years there's a full audit of the system. So we do have people watching us. So say that we manage for all tree species, not just the pine that some people feel that we do. So that includes tolerant hardwoods, sugar maple, beech, ash, basswood. So these generally naturally regenerate through selection harvesting. So we remove 1/3 of the trees, make space for new growth, but also retain the older trees. So we end up with an all-age system. Intolerant hardwoods includes poplar and white birch, and these naturally regenerate rapidly after harvesting. With lots of, they regenerate with a great deal of vigor. So there's no problem there with renewing those. Oak, that generally is naturally regenerated, but sometimes it needs some help, so we'll do some planting and we'll do some tending. Spruce is a small part of our forest, but when we regenerate that, we need to plant it and tend it. And then getting to white pine, regeneration is mainly through planting with periodic tending. And this chart or graph on the side there just shows the breakdown of the different forest types. So the tallest bar is the white pine. So it is the most significant forest type on the forest, but it only makes up about 20% of all the forest that we have out there. So here's just a picture of white pine management. One way we manage it, so it's a shelter wood cut. So what's happening in there is that about 50% of the trees have been removed to make space to start the renewal process. So we'll plant underneath that, and we'll expect to get a lot of natural seed as well to come down from those seed trees. And in this picture, you can see that it's been site prepared, so it looks very clean underneath. So this picture was taken right after we've done the mechanical site preparation. So it looks clean now, but it will sprout up with all kinds of new growth shortly after. So what is tending? Tending is like weeding, just like you do in your garden. So what happens after we harvest? There's a lot more sunlight and space for new growth, and you get all kinds of vegetation that sprouts up after the harvest. So with slower growing fire origin species like white pine, regular tending is critical just for the survival of those planted seedlings. People, we talk about getting better growth, but really it's a case of survival for those seedlings. Without tending, we would lose a lot of them. That's just a picture showing there's white pine in there. You can see some of the growth that happens, and that's actually not that bad. If I showed you a picture of where it is bad, you wouldn't be able to see the pine trees at all in there. So what are the methods we use? Well, there's mechanical site preparation. So that's usually with a piece of equipment like a bulldozer or a skidder with a big rake on it, and it'll mechanically scrape the ground, move the debris, and take out some of the vegetation. There's brush saws. Prescribed fire. We used to use lots of prescribed fire in the province, but not in the last few decades, maybe, for some obvious reasons. Sheep have been tried in Ontario. I was involved in a trial back in the 90s where we used sheep, so I do have some experience with sheep for tending. We've also tried brush mats. Those are those big plastic sheets, or sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they're a fabric mat that you put out, and the tree planters will plant inside that. And then there's the herbicides. So each one of these, though, has its own issue. So mechanical site preparation needs to be done carefully to avoid site damage. If you scrape too hard, you can take off the topsoil, make the soils prone to erosion. Not a good thing. Brush saws, there's a high risk for injury. Carbon monoxide poisoning, that's happened on occasion when the guys are working in really dense bush. It can happen. The big thing though with brush saws is the resprouting that happens after treatment. There's a picture here showing 3 stems that were cut, and then you can see they've resprouted, right? So you've almost like you've cut off one arm and grow 10, right? So it's a short-term treatment. It does help in the short term, but it does sprout back, so it's a bit of an issue. So prescribed fire, risk of fire escape, damage to property, I think we all know about that one. Sheep require large numbers. They don't eat all the weeds. We've had trouble with them with when I was involved with this, they wouldn't eat the poplar, and sometimes the poplar grows too tall for them anyway. And poplar is a major competitor in our plantations. So, and the big thing with sheep though, the big problem with sheep is that they bring disease to the wildlife. Some of the trials that we did in Ontario had to be canceled because there was fear of the disease that would bring to the moose and deer population. Some of the diseases are quite deadly, right? So, and there's brush mats. They're expensive, cumbersome, and not very effective. And then herbicides, right? It's negative perception by the public. Some weed species are resistant. In the case of glyphosate, maple is quite resistant to glyphosate. So with those problems, we don't really use the fire, the sheep, or the brush mats, but we do use mechanical site brush saws and herbicides. Those are what work for us. So talking about herbicides in general, so most commonly used is glyphosate. It's primarily used in agriculture. It's 80% of the use, mainly for weed control. It's sometimes sprayed directly on crops that are resistant to it. So there's, I guess, some strains of corn that are resistant to glyphosate, so they'll actually spray those crops. And that's kind of how it's one of the ways it gets into the food supply. It's been in use for agriculture since 1971 and for forestry since 1976, so it's been around a long time. It's the most studied herbicide on the market. And in 2017, Health Canada did a comprehensive review of the studies on the impacts of glyphosate. And they found that when it's used according to the label instructions, products containing glyphosate are not expected to pose risks of concern to human health or the environment. So here's a picture of an area that was sprayed last year. This picture was taken a couple weeks ago. You can see the evidence from the spray. There's some dead, you can see some dead saplings in there, the competition, that's dead sticks. But you can also see there's a great deal of other trees that have survived the spray. There's some clumps of maple. There's some balsam fir. The area that we're trying to tend for, or the species we're tending for there, is red pine, so you can see those as well. But this is just to show that this is very typical of what it looks like. There's a lot of biodiversity still after the spray. Let's get into health concerns. So toxicity, it has a lower toxicity than most herbicides used in Canada. It's less toxic than many common household chemicals like vinegar or table salt. And it doesn't bioaccumulate. It's water soluble, so it doesn't accumulate in fatty tissues. When it comes to cancer, some studies involving high exposure rates show carcinogenic effects. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization, classified it as group 2A, probably carcinogenic in humans. Now, there was some controversy with that decision, apparently. The lead researcher for the IRC apparently did not consider some studies that show that it didn't cause cancer. So there's controversy around that decision, but that's the decision, so that's what we have. The other thing I'd say is that Group 2A also includes eating red meat or doing shift work, so there's a lot of things that get pulled into that group. And I just thought I'd mention here that, so gasoline is a Group 1, highest risk carcinogen. It's something that we all deal with every day, right? We're set up to be able to manage the risk for that. The gas stations have the pumps that won't spill, that kind of thing. So it's just to say that we manage the risk for gasoline. We understand the risks and we kind of manage it. So it's kind of the same way with herbicides, the way I look at it. There's concerns about the effects on gut biome. Some studies show that it can cause an imbalance in healthy versus unhealthy gut bacteria. This is inferred from high exposure scenarios in rats. So I don't know what to say other than there are some concerns, but it's unclear what they are. So one thing I wanted to mention is this risk versus hazard. So why the IRAC has made their determination and why Health Canada is different. Because IRAC uses a hazard assessment. Can this chemical cause cancer? That's what they're trying to figure out. What Health Canada does is a risk assessment. How likely is it that this chemical will be harmful under any circumstances that may be reasonably expected to occur? So we have this quote from Dr. Vicky Tatum at NCASI, and it's just an example of the kind of things they'd be looking at as determining risk. So this is in the case where there's corn has been sprayed with glyphosate. And it says here that residues of this herbicide in corn might cause cancer, but only if an individual consumed 242 pounds of it every day for more than 50 years. So its use on corn poses little risk to consumers. So risk in the environment. So in soil, it binds strongly to soil particles, so virtually no leaching from the application site. It's also readily degraded by soil microbes, and it has a half-life on average of about 32 days. In water, it's essentially the same as in soil. It's absorbed just suspended particles and sediments, and microbial degradation occurs at that point. In forest plants, it can persist in the roots into the next growing season, but concentrations are very low. And just a note that it's taken through the foliage, not through the roots, but it can persist in the roots for a year or so. Okay, looking at our aerial spray operations. So this tends to be done in remote areas away from human habitation. And buffers are applied on all the water bodies. It's a minimum of 60 meters. And on any significant value, like a cabin or a species at risk, the buffer is 120 meters minimum. Typically, we spray between 3 and 5 liters of the product per hectare. So a bag of milk is like 4 liters. It's not a lot, right, over a hectare. And we're required to follow the label requirements. So we spray only when the wind is less than 10 kilometers an hour, as to avoid any drift. And temperature has to be less than 24 degrees Celsius, and humidity has to be greater than 50% to avoid any kind of evaporation and movement of it. And the other thing we do is when we're doing the spray, we block the roads so people can't go in, and we post the area after we sprayed, with the date it was sprayed and what herbicide was used. And just on the side here, this is an example of an operations map. So the area that would be sprayed is the orange, and the pink and blue are the buffers on the water. There's a little lake there, Cranberry Lake, I think it's called, and with the streams. So you can see that we don't actually apply any herbicide near water. And they've done studies to confirm that those buffer distances are appropriate to keep any drift from entering the water. So just in conclusion, we manage forests depending on their forest type. In some stands, we use herbicides as a tool to help get the desired outcome. The risk of public exposure, we feel, is pretty low, given all the planning we do for implementing our spray programs. And our plans are all public, so people can see for themselves if they have any doubts. And also, there's just a note to encourage everyone to get out and have a look around, see for yourself how we're doing. Forests have a long history of active forest management, including the use of glyphosate, and you'll see that they're healthy and diverse.
Okay, thank you very much, Dick. You also included in your package that was sent out multitude of information on the product and on the spraying, and I hope council had a chance to read through all of that as well. Okay, I'll open it up to council for questions. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions, and I will preface this by, I will say that I know OVF. I've worked at Tree Mark for OVF before, Tree Mark for AFA. I think we do have some of the best forest management on the Ottawa Valley, anywhere in the province, if not the country. a point on glyphosate though, I don't like it anywhere, not let alone only in the forest. Reasons being, we have other opportunities of ways to do it. And like we spoke about before, there's a benefit of creating economic growth and providing work for people. So with a mechanical scarification, you're hiring more people, you're keeping more people at work. Yes, it's more time consuming. Yes, you have to do it multiple times compared to a single application. But I think there's a benefit in that. And maybe you can just correct me if I'm wrong. When you do brush sawing, is there spot spraying when you do when brush sawing is done?
No, years ago, we used to use sproutless application, and so there was actually herbicide that went on the brush saw.
Okay, so that's what.
But we haven't used that in years.
Okay.
So brush saws are completely herbicide free.
Yeah, because, and correct me if I'm wrong too, I know with the AFA, they have a provision that says they could use herbicide, but they don't for logging of Alpine Park. So there's just like, there's that invisible line that stays, you know, on one side we use it, the other side we don't. So in a provincial park, it's not suitable, or it could be suitable, but they don't. But then on the other side, yeah, we do use it. So I'm kind of up in the air, and I understand we use it in remote areas, low access. My biggest issue is someone like me, I hunt up there, I fish up there. So what is exposed to it? You know, when I go moose hunting or I go deer hunting, have they eaten that? Have they been sprayed on? And then now I'm going to consume it. So there is a direct exposure for people who do that. And that is a very large area for especially moose hunting. But I will say, I'll leave it at that. I think you guys do a great job. Anyone can go to a forest that has been cut sustainably. And forestry is like farming. It's just our crop cycle is like a 20-year cycle compared to a yearly cycle. So we use glyphosate in farming. There is other ways, and sometimes innovation does have to think outside the box. I know we use this now, but there's not like this is the only way possible that it can be done. So I think just having the conversation of being, what else can we do, and is there something else that can be done? Because just because we've been doing something for so long, it doesn't mean it's always the best way going forward in the future. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thank you for taking the time to come to speak with us tonight. I appreciate your passion for forestry and your willingness to engage with us over this very important topic, glyphosate and forest management. And I want to preface my comments by saying that our forest should be understood not just as a renewable source of needed wood products, but also valuable sources for other things. One of them being carbon sequestration and storage. So forest is carbon sinks, and our forests are also where biodiversity happens. So biodiversity being the natural heritage that we have received from the generations that came before us and that we should pass down to the generations that come after. And to Adam's point, there was forest management before glyphosate. And it's been demonstrated that there can be forest management without glyphosate. So I have a range of comments and questions. I'm really excited to have your thoughts and your answers on my questions. So I'll take breaks and give my fellow councillors a chance to ask their question. But above all, my goal is to understand and significantly to do my job in this seat, which is to represent the questions, concerns, thoughts, opinions of all the people in Petawawa that I've had the time to talk to about this topic. So just to start, I'm interested in just gathering more information about your practice. Significantly, do you add any dilutants or stabilizers to the glyphosate?
Well, the glyphosate, so it's mixed in water. So I say it's 3 to 5 liters, but it will be mixed in water. So there'd be a total of 50 liters per hectare sprayed. 3 liters of herbicide, let's say, and then 47 liters of water. So within the we sprayed the trade name we sprayed this year was called Timberline. People are more familiar with Roundup, but Vision, Timberline, those are the things that get used for forestry. And in there is a surfactant, it's called. And what that is a soap. And what that does is it allows the herbicide to stick to the leaves. So it doesn't roll off, right? Just to improve the effectiveness of it.
Do you use any stabilizers? Just that one surfactant?
Surfactants, everything that's in the herbicide, I couldn't say, but my understanding is there's a surfactant and the actual herbicide.
Okay, because there's glyphosate and then there's commercially prepared glyphosate with those added adjuvants to it. So there's a lot of concerns about those additives themselves. Have you dealt with any of those concerns?
Well, that's part of the review that Health Canada did, right? They looked at the actual the actual products as well. So they
No,
looked
I'm
at
sorry,
the
I meant you
components.
yourself.
Sorry,
You yourself.
that were.
Have you done any of your own research into that?
Well, no, we take what Health Canada, if Health Canada says that it's acceptable to use, and we, when we put together a spray program, and it's reviewed by the MOE as well, so we have both federal and provincial governments basically approving what we're doing. So what we're using is an approved product, so we're assuming that it is good because it has been reviewed.
So you don't do any of your own research?
On the actual chemical? No.
Okay. Does anyone else want to have a
You
turn?
keep rolling.
Okay. My question, you mentioned brush saws, the high risk of injury and the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. I'm wondering, have you considered increasing the training that you give operators and using electric saws?
Haven't considered using electric saws. I mean, they are starting to come onto the market now, and in the past they probably weren't powerful enough. I think the biggest problem may be just in charging them. It's because you know, I have power tools at home, and if you're using them for any length of time, you drain the battery. But I mean, that technology is improving all the time. So if they were to come out with a good saw that's battery operated, we would use it.
So I would suggest an extra battery is a lot lighter than extra fuel. Yeah. Another question, have you reached out to forest managers in Quebec about their experience with managing forests without chemicals?
So I was involved in a tour of Quebec forestry operations a couple of years after they banned herbicides. And as I'm a registered professional forester in Ontario, I've been practicing for 30 plus years. What I saw that was happening in Quebec is not, I wouldn't do that here. So some of the things that they're doing, so they're using brush saws, and that we use that here. So that's one technique that they have. But they're also growing large stock. And they'll show you these big tall trees, which are hard to plant for a tree planter. But the other thing is that kind of is to grow that tree in a container that you can plant. That seedling is what we'd say is highly imbalanced. There's too much stem, not enough root. So when you plant it in the ground, it won't grow. It'll spend the first year growing roots to support that big stem that it has. So when you see that, and then you see a poplar tree will grow 3 meters in a year, possibly. That doesn't work. They were, in some cases, they were going to a lesser species. So they had, we were in a site where they were cutting white spruce, and there was a lot of balsam fir regen, and that was what they're expecting would be the new forest. Balsam fir this is in eastern Quebec. It's a lot better than our balsam fir, so it is it's good timber species, but it's not as good as spruce. So as a forester, I'm thinking, I wouldn't like to do that. So there's things that there's not a lot of information that's coming out of there as to how it's working, but some of the things that I saw, I wouldn't like to do here. I don't think it's, we're trying to do the best job possible for forest management. And I see that as a compromise, not really doing the best job.
Sorry, what year was that?
That would have been in the early 2000s.
Okay, but you haven't caught up since?
I haven't been there since.
Okay. Another question, do you spray or apply fertilizer to these sites that are sprayed with glyphosate?
No fertilizer.
Okay. Anyone else?
Somebody else want to jump in? Okay, Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Nick, for the presentation. Just a couple of observations. You used toxic, the vinegar and table salt. I'd be curious as to what that actually means, like how much over what period of time, that kind of, because kind of, it's, to me, it's kind of like a little bit of a, you may be right, but it's almost like a little bit of a red herring. Okay, we'll focus on what we all, we all eat red meat, or we all have table salt and that kind of stuff. So we're putting toxic stuff in our systems. So just an observation. I'm wondering what the frequency of glyphosate spray would be in forest management, i.e. how frequently would the same hectare be treated, let's say a 10-year span? Would it be treated once? Could it be treated every year? Just as a curiosity as to.
It depends on the effectiveness of there's a lot of variables, but if it all goes as we like to see, it'd probably be two applications. Maybe three on the same hectare, but over a rotation though. So a rotation would be 100 years.
Okay, so maybe 3 times in 100 years, not 3 times in 10 years. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And what was my other? I mean, I certainly, I think that there's a place for, many different kinds of approaches potentially. I mean, prescribed fire might work in a very certain area under certain conditions. Brush saws would be appropriate in certain areas, that kind of thing. To speak to Adam's point about, employment and getting people, in touch with the nature and all of that kind of stuff might be very good. I guess I see that there's opportunities to sort of expand the portfolio of applications to diminish the glyphosate and increase the other opportunity. Just wonder if you, looking at considering that kind of stuff.
So absolutely, so that's why we use brush saws though, right? So we'll use brush saws where they're appropriate, and they can often complement each other. So in some cases, the glyphosate won't impact the maple or the balsam fir. Mm-hmm. So we might go in and do if we feel those are really competing with the seedlings that we planted, then we might go in and do some brush saw work as well. And the brush saws are more typical when things are older and you want to maintain some biodiversity. You have a lot more control with the brush saw, mm-hmm. because you can leave. Let's say you've got a stand where you've planted white pine, mm-hmm. but there's a good component of oak in there. And oak is a species that we like, and they often grow together. If we were to spray that, you might lose the oak. It is somewhat resistant, but you might lose it. So we do use brush saws instead in there to retain that oak wherever possible.
Yeah, understood. I guess what I'm hearing you say is that you might use brush saws in certain areas. I would suggest that we use other methods first, and then look at if glyphosate has to be used, that would be the sort of the tail end of the spectrum of tools that we use. That would just be as a citizen and listening to your presentation and the other presentation, maybe certainly a little more safer for us. But thank you very much. I appreciate your answers.
I'll just jump in with one question based on what the Deputy Mayor asked there. So in terms of one application of glyphosate on a certain plot of land, once that one application has been applied and it's worked and it's been successful, does that mean that plot will not need any more attending or management for the life of that plot, or will there still be some more mechanical tending? So
the objective is to get a stand to what we call free to grow. So that means it's basically free growing. It's free from competition. We don't have to do anything more. It's now going to be a stand, and our job is done. So once we get to that stage, there's generally no tending treatments necessarily. We might do follow-up treatments further on to do maybe do some thinning treatments just to improve the stand, call it stand improvement work. But once it's free to grow, then we would probably that would be the end of it.
Okay, thanks. Councilor Driscoll.
Just for some clarification, maybe for everybody else, can you explain how you choose where you will spray glyphosate compares to using something else, like using mechanical?
So we use mechanical everywhere because that's the site preparation. So everywhere where we're planting, we're doing the mechanical site preparation. So after that, though, it all depends on how much regrowth we get of the vegetation. And what we do is we send staff out and they do surveys, regeneration surveys they're called, and they'll identify areas where tending is required. There are some places where you don't need tending. It's fairly rare, but there are sites where you don't need tending.
I will say, like, so when I was working in the bush, when you are in a pine stand that has been cut and is regen to poplar, it takes over so fast. So it does need to be tended, because if it creates a canopy over top of the white pine is done. So it is important, and it is, you know, we want diversity in our forests, but pine was the number one when you go west of here, right? Like when they started logging here, they came here for the pine. They didn't come here for the maple and stuff, but they cut everything. There was no forest management. So that is why we are left with the diversity we have of the poplar and the oak and the maple. So to bring that back to its original state where it was like for hundreds of thousands of years, I don't think it is a bad thing. So when people say monoculture all the time, it's like, well, we want diversity, but it wasn't diverse forever. And in certain areas, when you go west and it's rock and sand, you don't get a great quality softwood, but you're getting a good quality pine and conifer tree. So it's something else to realize, because I mean, there is a lot that goes into forest management that until you really look into it, you don't know. But thanks.
Further questions? Councillor Kern.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Service, and thank you for the presentation. Very informative and kind of a controversial topic as well. However, to follow up on what the Deputy Mayor said, certainly a phased approach seems to be logical to me. We're using X amount of product today, and the public perception on this program is quite negative. From my experience anyway, anybody I've spoken to. Are we looking at phasing it out? Like, do we have a 20-year plan in place to say, okay, today we're using X, and in 20 years from now, we're going to use 0?
I would say we have a plan to phase it out. We do try to reduce as much as possible, though. So that's, you know, that's why we do employ the brush saws wherever possible. But it's just, as I point out, there's a lot of issues with the brush saws, and so we have sites that are just so competitive that we really have to use the herbicide. And I'm not a salesman for glyphosate. I don't care what we use, really. It's what works, and really herbicides are what work. And there are other ones out there on the market. Like if it's glyphosate that people don't like, there's another one we could try if we feel it's safer. It's just that glyphosate is the one that has the safest profile. It wasn't until the IRC came out with that designation that people really started to have issues with it. And like I say, there was some controversy around that. I still think glyphosate is the safest one out there. And we recognize that, yeah, it's public have a real issue with it. So we do try to reduce as much as we can, and the industry as a whole has reduced immensely the amount of herbicides used in the province. I think there's graphs probably on, I don't know if it's on M&R's website, you may be able to find it, where they have, and I could help out finding some of this information. But overall, the industry as a whole has reduced the use of herbicides greatly over the last couple of decades. It's just, I wouldn't say we would get rid of it entirely unless we had a good alternative. And the sheep thing, I mean, I remember when we were looking at that back in the 90s, it was an issue back in the 90s, and we had high hopes. But sheep, like I said, there's all kinds of problems with them, and in our case, they're actually eating the crop trees too. So it's not a fix. The sheep will work in certain locations. It's a tool like any tool. It works in certain contexts. Sheep probably work great in Western Canada, where it's mainly grasses and herbaceous competition, and you're growing spruce because they don't like spruce. So in that situation, sheep probably work great, but not here for our pine.
Thank you.
Councillor Kudu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. My next question. Did you have the benefit of watching the presentation that was given to council by the group called Stop the Spray?
I did see it.
You did, okay. So are you aware of the link that has been made between the severity of wildfires and the impact of glyphosate spraying?
Yeah, I've heard it. I don't, so I don't see that. You saw that picture that I showed. There's, even after spray, there's a lot of residual hardwoods. And we tend to spray, when we're doing the tending spray, we do it in September. By the time you have the impacts, of the spray, it's October. It's not really the fire season. And in the next spring, you'll have all kinds of new growth. So I don't see that as an issue or concern.
So the concern is that it's creating the tinder that lets the wildfire spray, that it eliminates the competing species, which you said is the plan, is the goal. It eliminates the competing species. And it's those slow burning, sorry, I'll just finish. It's the slow burning deciduous undergrowth that you're trying to reduce. And the idea is that that helps the fire from spreading quickly. That's the link I was asking about. Are you aware of that link?
No, I'm not aware of that link. Yeah. Right.
Can you explain, for the benefit of anyone who doesn't know, how glyphosate works, like how it kills plants?
Basically it stops. My understanding, anyways, it impedes photosynthesis from taking place.
Do you know the mechanism though? I can tell you if you don't.
Well, I'm a forester. I'm not a scientist. So I shouldn't say it that way. I'm not a chemist.
Sure.
So I don't know the details.
So I know you provided us with an AI summary of all of those studies. Did you yourself read them?
I did look through those studies. That summary was something that was provided to Killaloo Haggerty Richards, and so we thought it might be useful for this council as well.
Okay, so I'll just mention glyphosate kills plants, like you say. It deactivates a key enzyme that produces amino acids in the plants and other essential compounds. So that's how it kills the plants. But I'm wondering if you know of other organisms that are also affected by glyphosate because they have that localized enzyme. Are you aware of any others?
Other than plants? No, I'm not aware of it.
So unfortunately, microorganisms are affected because they have that same enzyme pathway. So that's the concern with glyphosate spraying going into the soil. Is this new information for you?
Well, it's my understanding that microorganisms help break it down. That's part of why it has a half-life of about 32 days.
So two things are true at once. It kills a lot of beneficial microorganisms, but it also is, yes, broken down by microorganisms. And you mentioned that glyphosate binds strongly to the soil. Can you please expand on why this is a good thing?
Well, so because it doesn't move from the treatment site, there's concern of glyphosate moving into groundwater, and the point of that is it stays where we put it. It doesn't go anywhere else. That was the point of that. And like I say, it doesn't last forever. It's usually gone within 60 to 100 days.
So the effect of it, though, remains where it kills those beneficial organisms. So I'm not sure if you know this, but white pine, they need that beneficial bacteria in the soil to fix nutrients for them to grow. So I'm wondering, isn't it counterproductive to spray something that kills the bacteria organisms that benefit the white pine's growth?
Well, the white pine would be benefit from mycorrhizal, and I have not heard that glyphosate impacts mycorrhizae that benefit pine and other tree species as well.
There's a few others as well, but I'm wondering too, when you're talking about how it binds to the soil, are you aware of how that process happens chemically?
Vaguely.
Do you know which minerals are in play?
Not specifically.
Okay.
I could look it up.
I could tell you. So glyphosate binds to metal ions in the soil. That's why it stays stable for the most part. But when it does that, it reduces the bioavailability of then those elements. So it reduces soil potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium. So I'll ask again, isn't it counterproductive to spray something that then fixes these important minerals and reduces their bioavailability in the soil.
We haven't seen that. And we do, so we do a great deal of survey work where we go out, staff go out and they measure the height of the trees. We've never seen an impact, any difference between herbicide treated and non-herbicide treated. Really, the difference between herbicide treated and non-herbicide treated would be that we have much better survival of the pine and generally better growth. So if that's an impact, it certainly doesn't show in any of our information.
That's not your experience?
It's not our experience. No.
Are you aware also of the impact of glyphosate on biodiversity in terms of freshwater phytoplankton, deer, and moose, where they lose their foraging materials? Are you aware of those impacts?
Well, when it comes to deer and moose, some of the studies that I've seen is that it actually maintains browse on the site for longer. What happens is a lot of the browse species, they continue to grow in height, and what happens is they become out of reach from deer and moose. When you spray it, it's not an elimination, as I tried to show in that picture. It's not elimination of everything. It knocks it back. So what happens? It gets knocked back, and maybe the moose and deer don't use that site for a year or two, but then they can come back and they'll have browse there again. If it wasn't treated, they would lose that browse after a few years.
So we should swap studies, because I read a study that said that the survivability of moose calves was reduced because of glyphosate spraying. So we can trade studies after. My next question, and I know you talked about rats, but are you aware that more than half of the human microbiome is intrinsically sensitive to glyphosate?
Well, I saw the studies. I don't know, I don't know specifically, but what I would say to that is the way we use it, the risk of it being in your gut is very low, right? Because we're not expecting you to be impacted at all. You're not going to get a dose of glyphosate from us.
So you mentioned it's staying in the soil, but are you aware that the soil composition impacts whether or not it reaches groundwater, like sandy soil versus clay? That affects whether or not it can reach.
Well, certainly
groundwater.
clay soil, it would bind more strongly to clay than sand.
Exactly.
Certainly.
Correct. So again, looking at the studies that you've provided, there are studies that find that glyphosate has a genotoxic effect, meaning it affects human DNA. There are studies that show it has a neurotoxic effect, that exposure to glyphosate alters the structure and function of the nervous system of humans, rodents, fish, and vertebrates. It creates microbial dysbiosis in humans, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be better to err on the side of caution and use non-chemical forest management techniques, given that there's not a consensus?
Well, there are thousands of studies done on glyphosate, thousands. We leave it to Health Canada to do the review and determine whether it's safe or not. And they have. We have to respect that those organizations are going to do their job and do it properly, right? It's maybe I'll try. So how many times have you read that don't eat butter, it's going to kill you? And then a few weeks later you read and say, oh, eat butter, it's going to save your life, it's going to give you. There's so many studies that are done out there, and often they contradict each other, right? So there are so many factors you have to look at in these studies. Was it done right? Some studies are done poorly, so poor quality studies. Others are done much better, right? But that gets all lost in these just pulling the facts out of here and there, results here and there. That's why, in my mind, we leave it to Health Canada to do that exhaustive review. They look at it, and it's like I said, they've looked at the risk, right? Yes, glyphosate is toxic. It is toxic. So is vinegar and salt. You don't sit down and drink a jug of vinegar, right? We all know that would not be good, right? So if you use it appropriately, like you do with vinegar, you put a little bit on your salad, and you're good. If you use it appropriately, there's little risk of those negative impacts.
So I have 5 more questions. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in.
How we doing?
Well, we're a little over our time.
I do appreciate this. I hope you'll all indulge me. Just a few more questions. We gave a lot of time to pickleball once, I remember, so I'm hoping we can give some time to this. It seems very important. I'm just wondering, are you aware of the class action lawsuit that was recently certified in Ontario that asserts that glyphosate is a human carcinogen that has been associated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? Are you aware of that lawsuit?
I'm vaguely aware of, there's various lawsuits out there that I'm not aware of that one.
That one was certified in Ontario just recently. And you've mentioned the International Agency for Research on Cancer. They found that glyphosate has the following characteristics that are key characteristics of a carcinogen. That it's oxidative stress, it produces oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, gut microbiome, perturbations, endocrine disruption, genotoxicity, etc. So I just wanted to say this one piece, which is this wouldn't be the first time in human history where we've created a chemical whose total impacts, total negative impacts, we didn't understand or appreciate right away. And you can talk about asbestos, cigarettes, any number of things that we've created, put out in the world, and only later have regretted. So my question is, shouldn't non-chemical options for forest management be used out of an abundance of caution, but also humility, because we're not as smart as we think we are?
What I would say is it's been around for 50 years. It's the most studied herbicide we have, right? So I agree that there could be something found tomorrow that could be make it known that you can't use it, but it hasn't happened yet. Like I say, the risks of all those things happening based on how we use it are very low. So that's how we're mitigating it, right? And when it comes to what we're trying to do is manage the forest as best we can. We're trying to bring back white pine. As you're saying, the white pine was more prevalent 100 years, 150 years ago than it is today. And it's actually an objective of our plan to actually increase white pine on the landscape. So what I'd say is we need all the tools available to us to help us do that. Glyphosate is just one. As I say, if there was a better tool to come out, we would drop glyphosate in a minute if there was a better tool. We're not tied to that. It's just that to get the job done that we need to get done, it's a very valuable tool.
So last three questions. First, have you discussed, well, in reference to the fact that we are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, this is their hunting ground, this is their land. Have you discussed with indigenous groups any of your forest management practices?
Absolutely. So when we prepared our forest management plan, there were representatives on the planning team from several Algonquin communities. Every year when we prepare our annual work schedule, which is the work that we plan to do for the upcoming season, we send that package to all the communities. So it's all the Algonquin communities here in Ontario, as well as in Quebec, as well as the Williams Lake communities. And we offer to have meetings with them, and we often do. We'll meet with them and discuss our plans, which are everything: logging, road construction, but also herbicides. So they are aware of our plans.
Thank you. I've been speaking with some indigenous people who are wondering how to be part of that. So I'll refer them to that process. I'm very glad that takes place. Thank you so much. Maybe last two questions. Is it your position that you will only use alternatives to chemical-based forest management if you're forced to? Meaning you're not going to independently reconsider this. You're going to let Health Canada dictate what you do, notwithstanding any evidence that comes your way.
Health Canada says that it's safe to use as prescribed. So, and we believe that that's the case, right? So, as I've said, it's an important tool that we need to use on occasion. We do have other tools that we can use, and we will use them. But to get white pine to free to grow is a real challenge. And you know, I don't know how other jurisdictions do it without the use of herbicides. Now, in the package that you got, there's a I think it was Nova Scotia decided that they would stop using herbicides and they would just go with brush saws. And they stopped that because they found that 80% of their projects were failures. So it is needed. I know we don't like it, it is needed. It's been looked at, and if you use it the right way, it's deemed to be safe.
My last comment, I appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for your patience. Just my final comment, I understand your legal license to spray glyphosate in our forest. However, I'd like you to consider whether or not you have the moral license to do that, given the risks and the fact that there are alternatives. And that's my only comment, and thank you for your time.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay,
Questions open to the public?
no. Okay, Nick and John, thank you for coming this evening, and I bet it felt a little bit like you were on a hot seat, but you handled yourself quite well. It was a very fulsome discussion, and I think there were a lot of illuminating and enlightening facts brought forth here from both sides of the table, from the forestry sector and from the group that came and was against the spray as well. And I think now council has all of the information that they need, you know, to make an informed decision on what is for Renfrew County probably one of our most important industries, the forestry industry. And as Councillor Driscoll said, I think whether it's the OVFI or the Algonquin Forestry, I think all of our teams here in Renfrew County do a fantastic job of maintaining our forests and keeping our forestry industry alive and providing jobs to Renfrew County. But again, I think this has been a great discussion, both evenings that we had, and I think we're a lot more knowledgeable on this topic than we were a month ago. So thank you for coming and sitting on the hot seat this evening in the town of Petawawa.
Thank you for having us.
John?
My seat wasn't hot at all.
Keep enjoying your retirement there.
This is a lot better than I had it for 22 years. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we have no bylaws. So next up, we have a piece of correspondence from Vet for Pet. And this is a volunteer proposal from an individual named Ryan Gingra. And what he is proposing is, I think what we're finding now in the town of Petawawa that maybe didn't happen as much in the past is that a lot of our veterans, when they retire from the military, are staying in Petawawa. A lot more than would have happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, which is great. We're proud of our veterans and what they do, and it's great to have them remain in our community after their careers are over. So this individual is proposing to form a group called Vet for Pet, which will be groups of military retirees getting together once or twice, I think it was a month, to collect and clean areas of our town. Municipal property along the Algonquin Trail, all kinds of open spaces in our town. They're basically going to go clean them up, pick up the recycling, pick up the garbage, and keep our town clean. And what they're asking for is some cooperation and assistance from the town of Petawawa in terms of providing them with some garbage bags. And I think really that's it. And the permission to go onto our open spaces and municipal lands and clean it up. And that we would also provide them with an avenue once they picked up the garbage and put it into the bags to bring it back to the Civic Center, and we would dispose of it. They have their own high visibility vests, and they have their own equipment and tools to pick up the garbage. So all we would really be providing them is the permission to go out and do that, and the bags a couple times a month. So I'll open it up for questions, comments from members of council. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Ryan Gingra. This might be the best piece of correspondence I've ever seen. Anybody who is willing to organize a group of like-minded individuals to go out and pick up garbage to make our town even cleaner, I have nothing but ultimate support for them. So I wish them the best, and hopefully they will do an excellent job.
Thanks. Councillor Kerms.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor Service. I'll echo exactly what Councillor Driscoll said. It's a great idea, and I support it 100%.
Perfect. Deputy Mayor Sabrina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read this, my first thought was, well, I don't know that Mr. Gingrand needs our permission to pick up garbage. I think we see lots of folks doing that, and it's absolutely wonderful that people get involved and care about their community. On the flip side, he is organizing folks to do that, which comes a certain amount of liability, and my question is, as long as we're not accepting any liability for anybody getting injured or whatnot because of the provision of the bags and some of the support and stuff like that, I think it's a great initiative, and I think that community members who do that and help others to make contributions is just wonderful. So that would be my only statement, would be around any type of liability we are entering into as a result of supporting this initiative. Thank you.
Any comments on liability?
Very limited risk of liability by only providing the bags. That's why we are not going to go the route of taking the lead by responding to or providing vests and things like that of the nature, but he has that already handled and under control, so he will be providing all that, and just the bags is the only thing he's requested.
If I could just follow up, I thought I read in here that if you didn't have enough vests, we have some vests that we would provide. So
We did have some, but since then, he's going to be providing them for
understood.
that reason.
Thank you for that clarity. Appreciate it.
Councillor Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and after hearing those comments from the CAO, I'm in full support of this, and I think it's a great opportunity to have this group come forward and keep our town clean. Thank you.
Right on. Any other questions or comments? I would just like to say, Ryan Gingrand, if you're watching, as you've heard, it's a great idea. We're 100% behind you, and we think it's great that you're gathering groups of veterans who have remained here in Petawawa to help clean up our town. And I would like to get together with you, because if you're going to gather groups of volunteers, we have a lot more things we'd like you to do. Okay, I have a motion. I guess I'll just ask for a move rather than read the whole thing. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Driscoll, that council approves the request from Ryan Gingrand to establish a Vet for a Pet initiative where Mr. Gingrand will bring volunteer veterans together twice per month to collect and dispose of garbage in an organized, safe, and efficient manner. The town will provide pet waste bags and garbage bags for use by the volunteers, and guidance for this volunteer initiative will be provided by the Civic Properties Division of Public Works. If you're comfortable with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, the other piece of correspondence is the OPP cost recovery model review from the Honorable Michael S. Kersner, Solicitor General. And if you had a chance to read the correspondence, it's just talking about the 2026 calendar year in terms of the OPP policing costs and how it's going to work. There really wasn't a lot of in-depth or high-level information given, other than that the cap, the maximum, would be 11% increase. I don't know if that's a good thing that it's capped there. We'd like to see it, of course, much lower, because we know that this year, 2025, there was a significant increase that was somewhat dialed back to a more acceptable level. We're hoping that that doesn't happen again. But other than what was, put forth in this piece of correspondence, we really don't have a lot of information to go on, other than the 11% maximum cap. Any questions or comments on that? Deputy Mayor Sabrina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 11% is still a pretty high number for us here in the town of Petawawa. So great that it's capped, and I think last year it was 33% that it could have gone up or something in that neighborhood. So maybe they're on a 3-year plan. I don't know. But the other thing, I did read some information that came from AMO in terms of their update as to how they're trying to support municipalities. And certainly the discount, they said, will apply to very few municipalities. Certainly won't apply to our municipality, I doubt. But that being said, it's certainly better than 33%, a little higher than I'd like, but so be it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kern, did you hear it? No. Okay. Any other questions or comments? We're hoping for much better news when the actual solid information comes forward. Okay, so we'll receive that as information. Next, we have some minutes. Council and committee meeting minutes of September 22nd, 2025. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the minutes of the council and committee meeting held on September 22nd, 2025 be accepted by council. and that resolutions from that committee become resolutions of council. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have the Petawawa OPP Detachment Board minutes of June 18th, 2025. I need a motion to accept those minutes. Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that the minutes of the Petawawa OPP Detachment Board meeting held on June 18th, 2025 be adopted as information. Councillor Carmody.
Thank you, Mayor Service. So, yes, these are the minutes of our meeting held on June 18th, just prior to breaking for the summer. It wasn't too much. I've addressed a lot of the stuff that's in here, but I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Questions on the minutes? Having seen none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have minutes of the Petawawa Accessibility Advisory Committee from June 25th, 2025. I need a motion to accept those minutes. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the minutes of the Petawawa Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting held on June 25th, 2025 be adopted as information. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've spoken to many of these points through different meetings. Highlight from here would be the Treat Accessible. Our accessibility event is being held only at Town Hall. So we won't be at the 2 fire stations. We're going to use one main fire station and bring a more fulsome event at that one spot. So that information has been passed out to the community as well. We were very busy over the summer with our audits for different facilities, parks. So we were able to get a lot of that work done. And Kate had made a note at the meeting with regards to our commitments for reporting to the Ontario government on a 2-year cycle. So we're just coming up on that. So yeah, we're working hard. Kate's working hard to pull that information together and make sure that it gets into our report. If anyone has any questions, though, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions on the minutes? Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Donovan, you talked about the Treat Accessibility for the town. Are residents still able to get the Treat Accessibility signs, place them on their lawn, and are we still doing that, sort of identifying so that little people who are out trick-or-treating in their cool costumes can visit our homes?
Yes. Yeah, that part has not changed. Just our one location for the town to be at to hand out candy.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And if the residents wanted to get a Treat Accessibility sign, where would they go to find that?
They were going to
So Town Hall, we have them, and also Pet Value in Petawawa, and I believe Pembroke has them as well.
Okay. Further questions on the minutes? Big thanks to your committee and all the work that they do to ensure everything in our town is accessible. Yeah, probably pretty interesting doing the audits.
It is.
Okay. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have staff reports. First up, we have PL. Oh, what?
Seniors Advisory Minutes.
Seniors Advisory Committee minute meetings of September 3rd, 2025. I crossed the wrong thing off. I need a motion to accept the minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the minutes of the Seniors Advisory Committee meeting held on September 3rd, 2025 be adopted as information. Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take it that you had a senior's moment there. So we'll just move on from there.
I am a senior.
Absolutely, absolutely. In our community, 50 plus. So there we go. So I just have reported on some of these points before, but I would like to acknowledge the newest member of our accessibility, of our seniors advisory, there we go, committee is Cheryl Pennell. She has attended a few meetings, and I think she's going to be a really nice addition, very keen, very interested. They've got some social service, social work backgrounds, so that's a nice added feature to the plethora of experience that's around the table. And I will report on the Seniors Day event that was held on October the 1st. I just would like to say it was fantastic, and I'm still riding the high. So anyways, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions on the Senior Advisory minutes? And I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Now it's carried. Now we're going to staff reports. First up, we have PL-30-2025, official plan amendment number 24, Clark on Stephen Street. Registered plan 547, lots 1 and 7. Melanie.
All right, good evening, members of council. So this report is going to be similar to one that you heard last year. So last year, later in 2024, Mr. Clark applied to sever these same 2 lots into 2 pieces. The official plan amendment was approved in December, and the county approved the official plan amendment in February. Since then, the proponent has had a little bit of time to think about it and has chosen to revise their proposal. Instead of dividing those lots into 2 pieces, now they would like to divide their lot into 3 lots instead of 2. So just a reminder, Mr. Clark owns 2 lots in the subdivision. He would like to divide each of those lots into 3. The town had approved dividing them into 2 last year in 2024. So dividing them into 3, they would range in size from about 0.34 of an acre to 0.46 of an acre. 2 of the proposed lots would front on Doran Road. 1 lot would front on Stefan, and 3 lots would front on Carla Street. The proposal is to construct single detached dwellings on each of the 6 lots. A scoped nitrate impact assessment was completed for each of the lots, and it supports the proposal provided advanced treatment septic systems are employed. That requirement would be captured in development agreements if this was to move forward. Part of your package for the meeting was the proposed official plan amendment, basically saying on each of those lots, up to 2 new lots or up to 2 severances could be considered, and the planning justification report was also attached. From a planning policy perspective, the provincial planning statement encourages gentle intensification within settlement areas where the proper services are provided. Town staff is satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement in that regard. In the official plan, there are some policies around severing lots. One policy is the size and configuration of the lots should be appropriate for their intended use and blend in with adjacent development. The supporting nitrate impact assessment does demonstrate that the lots are large enough to meet provincial guidelines for nitrate concentrations from septic effluent. The proposed lots, while they're smaller than some of the other lots on Stefan and Carla Street, they are similar in size to the next subdivision over on Cardinal, and Bedard Street. Staff did conclude that the proposed amendment was consistent with the overall intent of the official plan. From a zoning perspective, the lots proposed on Carla Street are very slightly less than the minimum zoning requirement. The minimum requirement is 1,400 meters squared, and they're about 1,373 meters squared, so less than 30 meters squared left. Short of the minimum requirement, and the proponent would address the deficiencies through minor variance for those, which would be a condition of severance approval. So tonight, the intent was to provide council with information on this proposed amendment, and we would schedule a public meeting for the proposed amendment, provided council has no concerns with this proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Melanie. I'll open it up for questions from members of council. I guess we're pretty familiar with this one. It's been in front of us a couple times. So everybody's feeling okay about this? And do we have a scheduled date?
No, we didn't schedule it until this report was brought to council to ensure that council didn't have grave concerns with it.
I guess you haven't heard any grave concerns. Okay, so I guess we'll wait for the scheduling of the public meeting, give the public a chance to have their say and to see what's going on, and we'll go from there. So we'll receive that report as information. Thank you, Melanie. Next, we have PW-29-2025, Purchase Accessible Van for Local Community Transportation Program, Town Procurement File, PW-23-2025. And it looks like Chris is going to do it. John's doing it. Okay.
He took my spot.
Oh, wait.
No, it's okay.
Hang on, we gotta get Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
So as part of our community transportation grant program, we still have funds remaining to be used that can go towards a capital purchase of a rear entry wheelchair accessible van. I went through our cooperative purchasing buying group through LAS and Canoe Procurement to get vendors, to get a quote from, for that purchase, sorry. So I did contact 2 vendors which were approved through a public procurement process through Canoe, Expertech and Move Mobility. And Move Mobility provided a quote in the amount of $103,516.09 plus HST. And that's for a 2025 Dodge Grand Caravan with the Chrysler Braun Ability Commercial Rear Entry folding ramp. Previously, the MTO approved $110,000 to be used for this purchase as part of the grant funds, so we are within that amount. Move Mobility has provided a delivery date of 7 weeks once they receive our down payment of $25,000. And this is, again, to support the community transportation service that we have with Care4. And again, the funds are 100% covered through grant funds, so it won't affect our tax rate. And I'm just looking for council support to proceed with that purchase.
Okay, thanks, Don. Questions from members of council?
Thank you, Christopher. I would definitely support that, and good to hear that the delivery of 7 weeks is, we're lucky, I think, in that regard, with all the delays that are going on and everything. Thank you.
Councillor Carmody?
Thank you, Mayor Severs. I'll definitely support it as well. It'll be great to have a brand new vehicle for that program.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Donovan?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, highly supported. I appreciate the legwork that went into it. And I look forward to passing it on at the next PAC meeting.
Anything further? I just have one quick question. I know it says rear loading minivan, so it's a much smaller vehicle than the one we presently employ with the Care4 program?
Yes, it is smaller. It's to be used more for individual appointments. The larger van we will still keep as well for the grocery program until it's gone beyond its useful life. The rear entry was recommended by Care4 for the drivers themselves because with a side entry you can get back injuries for the driver for trying to maneuver the wheelchair.
I guess my question is, I know that we have the existing van and we have drivers that operate that. Now that we're going to have a second vehicle in this fleet, do we have driver or drivers to look after it?
The drivers are provided through Care4 and they manage that service for us.
Perfect. So for our residents to access this additional van, it would be accessed the same way they would access our van presently?
Yes.
Okay. And it would be the same price as well?
Yes. $5 one way, $10 return within Petawawa municipal boundaries.
It sounds like it'll be a pretty smooth transition then. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have support? A mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that council authorizes staff to purchase a rear entry wheelchair accessible minivan. This is the town procurement file PW-23-2025 through Canoe Contract CAN-20224-010-MMI. Don't ask me what that means.
Move
But it's in
Mobility
there.
Inc.
From Move Mobility in the amount of $103,516.09 plus HST using grant funds from the Community Transportation Grant Program. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. I think that's good news for all of our residents who use that service, that it's expanding. Okay, next we have PW-30-2025, award of tender, PW-17-2025, supply and delivery of LED sport field lighting. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor Service, and good evening, members of council. So staff are seeking council approval for the award of tender, PW-17-2025, supply and delivery of LED sport field lighting to the lowest bidder being Petawawa Electric Limited in the amount of $127,515 plus HST. This tender was prepared and advertised on our website and social media pages. 14 firms requested tender packages, and 3 firms submitted complete tenders on the closing date of September 16, 2025 at 10 a.m. The bids were Petawawa Electric Limited, $127,515, Nedco at $127,710, and Wealth Electric Limited, $159,917.52. These lights and fixtures will replace the lights on Ball Field 1 at the Petawawa Civic Center. Under financial implication, in accordance with the town's procurement policy, council approval to award this tender is required as this bid exceeds the monetary threshold of $100,000. The budget for this tender is $132,162 for the supply and delivery of the lights, and funds will need to be budgeted in 2026 to have the lights installed. The funding for this tender was included in the approved 2025 budget. I did mention about the fixtures, just for council knowledge. We did look at keeping the existing fixtures and just changing the LED bulbs, which would have been cheaper. However, we had the fixtures looked at and they are not in a good state of repair. So we couldn't go with bulb only replacements. We have to do fixtures and bulbs. And I'm happy to take questions.
Questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Chris, just a minor question. The budget for the tender is $132,162. Does that mean that's what it's going to cost us in total? And I'm just wondering what the extra $5,000.
Through the chair to you, Deputy Mayor Sabrin. The cost is $127,515 for the supply and delivery of the lights and the fixtures. There's no other additional costs. I think that's what you were asking.
Okay, so the budget for this tender, that was what we approved in our 2026 budget.
Yes,
I took it as something a little bit different, so that's why I asked the question.
No problem.
Appreciate the clarity.
Further questions on the report? Okay, if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Driscoll. The council approves the award of tender PW-17-2025, supply and delivery of LED sport field lighting to the lowest bidder being Petawawa Electric Limited in the amount of $127,515 plus HST. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have PW-31-2025, disinfection byproducts treatability study change request. Petawawa Water Treatment Plant Capacity Evaluation. That was a mouthful.
Thank
Chris,
you,
you're up again. And I see you brought back up for this one.
Come on
Nice
up.
to have you here, Brad.
I brought Brad along with me. I will do my best to work through the report that I have for council tonight. I'm hoping there'll be questions at the end, and I brought a very seasoned technical advisor along to support us tonight.
I'll do my best.
Thanks for coming, Brad. So, in May of 2025, Town Council approved a contract for consulting engineered services to complete a disinfection byproducts treatability study. This work is ongoing and is being completed by Stantec Engineering Services under the contract administration of the Ontario Clean Water Agency. The objective of this study is to identify and evaluate potential alternative solutions that could be applied to mitigate the DBP formation issue at the Petawawa drinking water system and select effective, feasible options. I provided a table in your report that outlines the cost of that study, and the budget for that study was $200,000. So before we go any further, it's important to have a little bit of background on this whole concept and what we're dealing with. The plant was commissioned, the water plant was commissioned in 1993. So it's 32 years old. And when it was commissioned, it had a maximum capacity, 21,500 cubic meters. So that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's 21 million liters a day that the plant was rated to produce potable water. That's 30 Olympic-sized pools. So that, I think, can kind of help provide a little bit easier way of thinking about this. But essentially what we're seeing, and what I'm learning, is that we have three factors that are changing things. So first off, we have the age of the plant. So no different than an automobile. When you buy it, it's performing perfectly, running at top capacity, everything's working great. But now the plant is 32 years old, so it's not as efficient as it was. We also have regulatory changes that have been consistently changed over the past 32 years, which is making it tighter restrictions on how we produce our water, which affects the ability of the plant to produce 21,500 cubic meters of water daily. The other thing we have is changes to source water. So the Ottawa River, when you consider when the plant was commissioned in 1993, 32 years have gone by. So 32 years of nutrient loading, 32 years of contaminants, 32 years of farming, 32 years of stormwater going into the river. Brad and I met before the meeting tonight, and I brought up the term eutrophication, which is something I actually remember from high school, which is essentially changes to source water. So those three items, regulatory changes, the age of the plants, and the changes to source water, what that's doing is it's changing the ability of the plant to produce 21,500 cubic meters of water. Okay, so the disinfection byproduct study, what's happening is we had meetings throughout the process. Stantec came to us with this plant capacity evaluation. And the reasoning behind it is we want to make sure that when we have the solution or solutions to the disinfection byproduct study, we want to make sure we're implementing the right solution at the right time. So the last thing we want to do is spend a lot of money on the disinfection byproduct study only to find out that our plant capacity is being challenged. So what we are seeing at the plant, and Brad can certainly provide more insight to this at the end when we go to question period, we're starting to see our plant capacity being around the 15,000 cubic meters is what we're finding that the plant is running top capacity where it can produce potable water that meets all the regulatory compliance of 2025. So in our meetings with Stantec, they proposed, in addition to the DBP study, an additional study to complete a water treatment plant capacity evaluation or stress test. So essentially they want to evaluate the current performance under high flow and high unit process loading, which is similar to testing a vehicle on a dyno. You want to see how the plant is performing under simulated conditions at full capacity. What can the plant actually produce as a total amount? We need to know that. We've always been running under the pretense of 21,500. So all our past infrastructure studies have looked at how much water we're using in our system, and it was always under the impression we're okay, we still have capacity. But what we're realizing is those three components that I mentioned before, the source water changes, regulatory changes, and the age of the plant, is changing what we have known or or assumed was our plant capacity. So we will determine whether the existing facility can operate at the capacity that the plant was originally designed and built for. Upon completion of this additional testing, it is anticipated that the effective real treatment capacity of the facility will be confirmed, and whether the existing facility will be able to accommodate the town's growth plans in the short, mid, and long term. And that's, I think, a very key component to this report, is we want to make sure that in dealing with the disinfection byproduct issue, are we spending taxpayers' dollars appropriately so that we get the maximum benefit out of these treatment changes? Or do we have to look at a bigger picture, which is looking at a future plant capacity upgrade and tying the disinfection byproduct solutions in with that? So I received the Stantec proposal in mid-July, and I think that's important also. It's October now. I've taken 2 months to look at this, to study it, consultations with Brad, consultations with Stantec, consultations with JP2G. We have our 10-year infrastructure study coming, which I want to feed this information into it. And all of the people and the professionals that I've consulted with have said that this is a good study to complete, and it's a smart investment. But I also wanted to say to council that I have taken a rather long time to study this, because I understand I'm coming before council looking for $110,000. And I realize that, you know, it's a large ask. So there has been a lot of time and effort put into studying this. So I provided a chart within the report that shows a total revised budget. But under the financial implication, the 2025 capital budget held $200,000 for the completion of the disinfection byproduct study. The revised cost to complete both the disinfection byproduct study and the water plant capacity evaluation is $267,745. Staff is requesting additional funds in the amount of $110,637, with $42,892 coming from remaining funds in the DBP study account, and $67,745 being reallocated from the water tower refurbishment project. There will be no further contingency allowance for the completion of either study. The requested funds are already in the approved 2025 budget and will be funded through budget underspends. Alternatively, council can defer the project to 2026. However, we anticipate increased costs in 2026 for the plant capacity evaluation compared to 2025, as the consultant is already engaged in performing the DBP study. So in conclusion, knowing the real capacity of the plant is paramount for our next 10-year capital infrastructure plan, and it's also paramount to understand how our water plant will meet the growth in the town that we're seeing. Addressing the DBP issue will be a significant capital expenditure, and we want to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent appropriately. Is it better financially to start planning for a plant expansion now, which would include the DBP issue, or address the DBP issue alone and expand and upgrade later? And that's exactly what this study is going to provide us with, is that solid data and information that we need to make the right decision for the taxpayer. So yes, it's a large financial ask, but at the same time, without having the capacity evaluation and that information, we may be going a little blind and looking at a solution to the disinfection byproduct study without a holistic outlook on things. So I think I've covered everything in the report. Brad is here to answer technical questions, so happy to answer anything that council would like to know further.
Okay, thanks for bringing this forward. There's a lot of important things we do here in the town, but I think an argument could be made that providing our residents with good drinking water is probably the most important thing we do here. So it's great that you brought this forward. Just one thing for clarification before I open it up. And just to get a sense of, I know we talked about a 10-year capital plan and what might come from this study, but everything that I heard you say is that if something does come from this study, it will possibly mean an upgrade of the plant. We're not looking at a huge addition or total reconstruction. What this may result in is a possible upgrade needed at the plant.
That's correct. And in talking with Brad Sweet, we have to remember that whenever we achieve 75% of the capacity of the plant, the government will force us to start that process. So we want to be ahead of that in our understanding of where we're at with our capacity now, where we are with development. And we also need to keep in mind, because this is very important, we can't just plan for a plant upgrade in a year or two. It's
3 years.
3 years for the environmental assessment. You'd be looking at least 1 to 2 years for design and then construction. So you're looking at 4 to 5 years of planning before we even reach construction. So again, the information from this study is key to put us in the right position to make the right decisions with this disinfection byproduct. We want to make sure we're not doing a stopgap measure now that's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars only to turn around in 5 years and upgrade the plant, when we could plan appropriately and do both issues in one.
And just one further question, that the money that you're asking for is either already budgeted or coming from surplus from other projects within
That's correct.
water budget?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that I will not support this as. This is the exact same scenario as reorienting the ball diamond or the town hall renovations. Now, I'm not saying it's not an important study. However, I will support it as part of the 2026 budget, which is right around the corner. So I just can't see that sense of urgency where it's got to be done this week, and it can't wait a couple of months for our 2026 budgeting process to get underway. So I think that while it's very important, I don't see a sense of urgency, and I think it's more important that we stick to our established, tried and true budgeting practices that have always done us well over the years, rather than go this route again. So for that reason, I won't support the ask. I'll definitely support it as part of 2026, but not for the ask that's included in here.
I think what I heard is one of the rationales that the consultants are on the ground right now doing the study, and that if they just keep doing the additional study, it would save us money between doing it now and 2026. Is that correct?
That's correct. The other important item to consider is having this information to include in our new 10-year capital infrastructure plan. If we wait until 2026, the plan is nearing completion now, and I'm intending to bring it to council in November. And that was part of the discussions that I had with our senior engineering partner at JP2G, was because, echoing the sentiment of Councillor Carmody, I've been working on this for a few months, and I also was trying my best to say, like, can it wait? But I understand the rationale when I'm talking with the various engineering and support mechanisms that I have at Public Works. This information is really important to include in our 10-year capital plan, and it won't get captured if we hold off. It won't actually be in the plan that's coming to council.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Sadman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris. Chris, just have a couple of questions. You talked about the capacity that was originally at 21,500 cubic meters. are we functioning presently at 15,000? Because there's a whole bunch of factors. When there's the freshet, I know that we're higher. When there's a, I don't recall, and I would have liked to have had that information, and I tried to find it in my files, but couldn't. Just where are we at on a sort of an average daily basis in the plant? If you could help me understand that.
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Saber. The capacity hasn't changed. The value hasn't changed that we report.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ability of the plant to run at that capacity based on a number of factors that we've experienced over the years. So in 1993, when the plant was commissioned, it was rated and designed at 21,500 cubic meters. At that time, we had drinking water standards, not standards, objectives, excuse me. So there weren't law, right? Then Walkerton happened, and we got Reg 459, which streamlined a bunch of requirements. Then Reg 170 came into play. And then, so in that whole time frame, a lot of things tightened up compliance-wise, right? So in order for the plant to meet all those compliance, I'll give you an example, turbidity running through the filters. Well, there's a cap on, you have to run 95% of the time below 0.03, right? Before, all we had to do was meet 0.1 or 1 NTU. So they had to be under 0.1 NTU. And, you know, now we can't run anywhere near that through the filters. So that impedes our ability to run the plant that high through the treatment process, right? So it's not that the plant capacity has changed. It's just that we are only able to put water out at a certain amount, which is mathematically 14,000 cubic meters. We run the plant right now at about 13.5 to make sure that we have a little bit of a buffer. We can run it up to around 15,000, but we can't run it at that for long periods of time, or we'll have breakthrough or different things. We won't maintain compliance parameters. So that's basically, the plant is really at 15,000 cubic meters today.
And that's what we run on an average every day. We're putting through 15,000.
No.
That was my question.
Yeah,
What
so-
is it that
so-
we are on an average?
So on an average,
Yeah.
right now, we run around 11.5 to 12.5 thousand cubic meters a day. In the summertime, we run, and this is a lot of reason why the plant runs for 24 hours in the day in a 24-hour, or in a day during peak demand periods. Right? It's not because we can't punch out 21,000, because that's the capacity. We just can't punch out 21,000 and meet compliance parameters. So we have to slow the plant down in order to meet. That's why we're only doing about 15,000 cubic meters a day in 24 hours.
Okay, so I could. So we're at about 11.5 to 12,000. So to me, that what Councillor Carmen had said is it being to me, if I'm going to spend what I'm going to call non-budgeted, non-discussed in a formal way, money, it's going to either be for a safety issue or it's going to be because we're in a crisis. I don't see that we're in a crisis right yet. So I'm going to stick to my my process, which is if it hasn't been budgeted, I would absolutely like it to be on the budget for 2026. We also have the garrison expansion coming forward. You know, the former garrison commander, and I'm sure the current garrison commander is talking about the expansion. And so they're going to be doing their own studies about the capacity, which I suspect will also include our water and wastewater treatment plants. And I'm thinking there might be some opportunity to have some discussion as to how we can share some resources. So I'd also like that. I'd like it to be put on hold for that reason as well, primarily for the budget. As I see all your numbers, we no longer need the contingency fund, because that was going to be one of my questions in the study. What could possibly be the contingency? I get that materials could go up. I get that in most other things, or we could find asbestos in the floors. I understand those kind of things. So what I'm hearing from you, Chris, is that we don't need the contingency at all. So that gives us some additional funds to apply to this new study. Is that what I heard you say we don't need?
Correct. So there was a contingency for the disinfection byproduct
Yeah.
study. But what we've done is we've taken that contingency and used it to offset, because we're getting closer to the end of the disinfection byproduct study. So we're fairly certain we're not going to require a contingency for it. So we're taking that contingency to lessen the impact of the plant capacity evaluation study.
Yeah, no, yes, I just wanted to confirm that my understanding was what you had said, so thank you for that clarification. So again, I'm perfectly willing to consider it as 2026. You know, the fact that it could go up a few dollars or whatever, since they already know our plant, I would find that interesting. They don't have to learn all the stuff and go through the study. So again, but that's a discussion for another time, and that's sort of where I'm at. But thank you for indulging me.
Councillor Kutcher.
Thank you, Mayor Service. To say I take a different view of this, I think one of the most important things we do is water. I think that a good important thing we do too is finding efficiencies and having good timing. So if we're in the process right now of putting all of this together, and it's going to be relevant and important to the decisions we make, it's going to be more costly, more difficult, and less timely if we wait. The money's here, it has been budgeted, it's being reallocated. It's already been budgeted, but it's being reallocated. That's what's happening here. And I'll just mention that we have absolutely 100% spent money that's been unbudgeted out of the blue, and I'll name the Veterans Crosswalk. We all supported that. That was unbudgeted. It's not something that we have to marry ourselves to, especially when we're looking at the benefit of the taxpayer and what they want from us at the end of the day, which is not to be beholden to process when efficiency and timing and something as critical as water is on the line. I'm very interested in this disinfecting byproduct study. It is, I think, critical that we understand how the plant can work and what its capacity is, and those two pieces of information are going to go together and make sure that we maintain our most important job, which is, again, making sure the health of our residents and the sustainability of this town long-term is looked at. And that's where I'm coming from. I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Donovan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in line with Councillor Carmody and Deputy Mayor Sabrin in terms of the short wait to have this study done versus having it hit the table right now. I don't think we are being negligent with regards to the services that we're providing to our community by waiting for those 3 months before we implement or begin this study, if we determine in 2026 that it is still something that would be relevant to be had. So like I said, I echo the comments that have arisen with regards to waiting, budgeting it appropriately. There's a bigger scale issue as well on some of the issues that did go through unbudgeted, as opposed to one was not 100K plus, while this one is. So yeah, that's where I'm standing, is that we'd like to delay it to 2026.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I first looked at this, I was a hard no, because I am against especially adding on more studies. And so when I look at it, I'm going to say I'm wavering, but because when I look at this, it's like, estimate the timeline at which the plant will no longer meet demand based on projected growth. Would that not just be like a data input exercise? We build 50 extra homes, we see how much extra water we draw. Okay, we're going to build 200 homes over the next 5 years. We should be able to accurately predict how much water we would consume. Is that somewhat correct or no?
Technically, that's the engineers use a factor.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about providing recommendations for process optimization and infrastructure upgrades. Do we not have, like, with the experience that you and your staff have, would you not have a forward plan of like what you guys know, you deal with it every day, what we would need? So I have a tough time with having to ask a consultant to come in and tell someone we've worked there for over 30 years, and same with lots of your staff. Like, I trust your opinion on your plan and your infrastructure on a plan moving forward, for what recommendations would be provided. To have an outside agency come in to do that at a cost of $100 and some $1,000, I don't think I can go with. Okay, so another point. If for the 10-year infrastructure, I agree with that. I think that was important data. Can now this be plugged into that infrastructure plan after the fact? Because again, should it not be just a data exercise of this is where we're at, we have this new information, we're going to do a new calculation, and this is where we're at?
So this has given us much greater detail. So I can absolutely, I can tell you, what I want to do, what I think is going to make a difference, how I want to deal with THMs, or how I think we should deal with THMs. We can, we do have that, but not at the level of detail that. So this study, they're putting particle counters and things on the filters to measure exact data, measure the exact breaking point. So, I'm saying right now, mathematically, it's 14,000 cubic meters. I'm confident I can push the plant to 15,000 cubic meters. Maybe there is something that we're not seeing, that they feel we could push the plant to 16 or 17,000 cubic meters. We don't have the ability to get that down deep into the weeds with the technology that they're going to be bringing in. And so when I'm looking at the THM study, so we've got, high level 3 or 4 different options, right? What is the best option? They're all going to work, but what's the best option that's going to marry with the process that we've got in place now, or what the potential process that we need to go to, in the future, right? So and the study is going to be twofold. It's going to be in summer warm water temperatures, which we're still at right now, and cold water temperatures, because the plant operates and reacts differently with the 2 different temperature seasons, and that's what we're trying to get a better understanding of, and that's what this study. I mean, yeah, we can wait, but having said that, that's another, like I said, or Chris mentioned, an EA process. So if we were to decide today that we have to upgrade the facility, we're not putting a shovel in the ground for 5 years. The red tape and the litigation and the permitting and all that is going to take, and the design build and tendering process is going to take 4.5 to 5 years. So I'm trying to, and this has always been one of my pet peeves in running the facilities, is doing things when it's on our schedule, rather than have the ministry come in, or end up finding out that there's 1,000 troops coming in and we can't accommodate them because we're not ready for it, right? So I'm always trying to keep ahead of the curve there, and that's basically why we're this is a good idea. Whether we do it, you know, right now, the ask is still going to be the same. They're already working on the project. It's not, they're bringing in, it's not the same engineers, it's a totally different team coming in. There's different equipment that is going to be installed at the plant too, and they're going to be, you know, if I told my operators, okay, I want you to run it flat out till she crashes, well, you know, nobody's going to show up for work, right? So, you know, they're going to be right with us, and we're going to be, you know, taking it up, and there's, so that we know, and it's going to be good for the operations staff as well, because, you know, what I feel comfortable running the plant at is different than what somebody else might feel comfortable running the plant at, because I've experienced something differently, you know. So, but that just puts things in a little more context.
Okay, so if we were to defer, how soon would they be able to start? I'm hoping we're gonna budget this fall. How quickly would it be able to start in the new year?
Well, we would have to go through procurement again through the Aqua engineering team, come up with a new proposal, new fee structure, come back to council. We would have to do the testing again, summer and cold weather. So you're looking at something summer of 2026, and then further testing in the cold weather, so the end of 2026. So we really wouldn't have the whole picture to go along with the DBP study until 2027, which would be 2 years out from our master servicing plan. And if we see the need to plan for a capital upgrade to the plant, that's putting us that many years further down the road from being able to say, okay, we need to start planning now for 5 years out.
So we could be at a crossroads here. I don't want, so some of the options to deal with the disinfectant byproducts are very costly. All of them cost substantial amount of money. So if we realize that there is a lot, so the ministry is on us over this THM and HAA, right? We keep reporting the exceedances, and I keep saying, you know, reporting back to them, we're working on it. And so if we don't, I don't want to put us in a position where we got to spend $500,000 on a PPD process, and then 2 years later find out that we're going to have to do the whole EA process and upgrade the facility, and this process isn't going to marry into the new processes for what we need in the future to run the plant, right? It could be fairly simple for me just to say, capacity-wise, add a filter, make my clarifiers bigger, put in chloramination, and we call it a day. But it's a lot deeper than that.
And so is there other companies that bid on this? Like, would there be other companies that would do this survey? Because I am very hesitant when a company recommends a survey for themselves to do that is at this price valuation. Like, is there competition in this area?
Yes, there is. I should clarify though that I don't think it came across as Stantec Engineering looking to find work. These discussions came up through meetings we had to discuss the disinfection byproduct issue, through new water modeling that they're conducting, through looking at our development growth projections for the town. And that's really where they proposed an additional scope to the study and to marry the two together. So essentially, like I said, it's been a few months that I've been researching and looking at this. I see it as being good planning. That's really what it comes down to. This is solid planning. And from a staff perspective, yes, it's a financial ask, but I am 100% confident that what we're asking here is good information that we need now to make proper decisions for the town. And we need to make the decisions now so that we aren't faced with 5 or 6 years from now, someone saying, we want to put in 400 homes, and I have to come to council and say, I regret to inform council that we can't meet that capacity. That is not what I want to do. So for $110,000, what I'm proposing is, let's finish the studies and have the information we need to plan appropriately for the future.
One thing, if I could add to, the DPD study has become a little more involved because of the 3 water systems that we have, right? So the former village, it was designed to feed from the water treatment plant. The township was designed to feed from Pembroke, and we have a section that's fed solely by Pembroke. So there's 2 water characteristics, one in Petawawa, one from the Pembroke feed, and that is causing some concern for the engineers as to how we go about coming up with a holistic treatment process for everything. And in addition, this information is going to help. There's water, like Chris said, there's water modeling where we're looking at the distribution system and seeing how all the water moves throughout the distribution system to see where the problem areas are with respect to DPD, levels. And we also have to take into account the water coming from Pembroke and the blend. Right? The blend is the unknown because it's never the same, right?
Okay, I'm definitely at a crossroads. Like, I can understand where James and Teresa are at, but governments move slow because we allow them to move slow, and at certain points we are in this position that we can change policy and we can go outside of policy to do what's best. But then on the other hand, I have a really tough time allocating $100,000 for this study. So I'll let, if anybody else has any secondary comments, I will speak before I make my
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing before I open it back up. So what I'm hearing is, and I know Brad, you've worked there a long time, you got a very experienced staff as well. So what I hear you saying is that you and your staff could look at these things and make forecasts, and it would be a very educated guess, I'll call it, based on your experience and knowledge and your staff's experience and knowledge. And using a particular formula, if we had 200 homes, you guys could sort of make a educated guess. But what this study is providing us is a level of technology that you don't have, and it's going to provide you with a level of data and statistics that you don't have, and it will help you make a more informed decision in a more timely manner.
That's right.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I can make an educated, guesstimate as to what needs. This will be like exact.
Councilor Ritz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of information coming to council, I think, late. I've been wanting you here for a long time. I think maybe that's a breakdown right there, because that's that information I think would influence us better. and Chris, you had this for, again, a few months, again, we would have had that information. I can't make a decision like that right here, right now. It's, again, from the flows that I see, from wastewater to our drinking water, nothing's changed in 15 years. I think we have time as a council to get a good grip on everything, control things, get a better understanding, get some thought process to our way we do business, and that's where my head is at right now. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Saber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had written down, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. So, and I don't like being in a rock and a hard place. Chris, you did speak about the 10-year capital plan, and I know that you're planning on bringing it forward. I think that this is something though that could be, rejigged if needed. It's not I know it would take work, and I'm not suggesting that your time is not valuable and that you don't put a lot of work and energy in. This is a big deal, this capital plan coming forward, so I get it. So I stick to my original issues, and I would just like to clarify something for Councillor Coutu when she mentioned the volunteer crosswalk and everybody being in favor of it. If you will recall, I was in favor of the crosswalk last year. However, I was not in favor of using unbudgeted dollars. So that my position remains consistent. The way I approach the spending of taxpayer dollars remains consistent. I will, if there is a crisis or a really pressing reason or a safety issue, I will always look at it in that context. I do not see waiting 3 months and doing that. Cold water, warm water, cold water's right around the corner and warm water's right around the corner from that. So I don't know that it's a 2-year wait, so I'll just leave it at that, and appreciate the second chance.
Councillor Kernan.
Thank you, Mayor Service. 100% agree with everything the Deputy Mayor just said, including the crosswalk. I had similar concerns about the crosswalk. I wasn't at the meeting for that vote. I was out deer hunting, I believe. However, I had similar concerns that it was unbudgeted money. This would be the 5th or 6th time in 2025 that this council has been asked to do something like this. And there's always a really good reason. There's always an excellent reason. And I listen to what you're saying, and in my mind, it just makes it even more clear to me that we shouldn't do it. There's always going to be good reasons to subvert the budgeting process. Like, everybody's got their pet project. They want something done, and I want the money. I'm going to come up with whatever reasons I need to make sure that happens. But at the end of the day, you're outside of the budgeting process, and we should be inside the budgeting process. That's where I like to live. And so I'll never support this or anything like it. So that's all I have to say.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you very much. I apologize for the misstatement. And I should have remembered you not being there, James. Apologies also. I just want to say again, I understand the reluctance, I do, but budgeting is always forecasting. And we are not good at forecasting because the world is an orderly place. It's not an orderly place. The world is chaos. So in the chaos, we could force a process that boxes us in and limits our options and ties our hands and puts our decision on a calendar. Or we had a lot of time with this agenda. And we've had a lot of time with the disinfectant byproduct testing study. We've had a lot of time with all of these issues. We have always understood that this plant is older. It's not going to last forever. I take very seriously the concerns that are being raised about whether or not it is performing the way we think it is. That's the key for me. It is the unknown unknowns that should keep us up at night. Hearing that our plant might not be working as well as we think it is should cause us to panic. I think, to me, it is an emergency, and one that we will regret less looking at, turning over the rock and looking. We'll regret doing that less if we do it now than if we wait and we turn over that rock and we find something we should have known back here. And we will have on the record the opportunity that we gave up to look under the rock and see what the problems are and make better decisions with the disinfectant byproduct survey and get a better study out of that. So we are going to be making more work for ourselves, possibly costing more money. We're going to continue the blind spot we have, and we're going to make everything we do less valuable now. instead of spending this money that is just being reallocated. It's not coming out of the blue. Water tower refurbishment, underspends, and the contingency fund. To me, this is a contingency. We've reached a contingency point where this is a good idea to look at what we don't know and to challenge ourselves. Do we actually know our plant, or is it 32 years old, being affected by all kinds of changes in its water source, and then the change in the regulatory needs? To me, that's persuasive. So I'll just maintain my position here that I'm interested in looking now with the understanding that it's part of preventing problems down the road and us doing our due diligence, notwithstanding whatever calendar month it is. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councilor
Yeah,
Jones?
just one quick question. I'm going to paraphrase what you had said because I don't remember it exactly. You mentioned government reporting and that for the last time period, we've been responding to what sounded like it might have been a fault with, oh, we're working on that, we're working on those. Yeah. So are we not meeting a standard?
That's correct.
And which one?
THMs and,
Okay.
and HAs. And that's what the initial Stantec study is dealing with, right?
Right.
But through them investigating and data collection, they came up with this stress test and my capacity assessment, right? Not the capacity of it's twofold: capacity for growth, for meeting the town needs, and also the capacity at which the facility can run.
Thank you.
I know that we're getting late in the evening here, and this discussion has gone on quite some time, but I think I need to ask you this. Because for the layperson, when you say TMH and HHA and we're not meeting the standards, how critical is this that we do something to meet these standards, and is it expensive to fix? And these two studies, well, the one that we're presently in, what is that going to tell us about how we can meet those standards? And the second, the stress test, how critical is that in letting us know how we can meet TMH and the HHA standards?
So the initial study is to come up with a detailed report with recommendations as to what process best fits the town of Petawawa's needs to meet GHM and HAA reduction. And so, like I said to you earlier, there's 4 or 5 processes that we can use, right? But which one is the ideal solution? What scares me out for this particular scenario is blended water from Pembroke, right? And the different pressure zones and the different flow patterns of the water within the distribution system, because it was designed, you know, basically there's 3 systems pushed together, right? One's designed to flow this way, one's designed to flow that way. And so there's a bunch of dynamics within the distribution system that we can go out and test and try and find out what the THM consequences are out in these different areas, but they're much more equipped and better, you know, technology to you know, do their water modeling and they, you know, and then all of this will then be incorporated into the plant process. What is going to be the best process to marry with the plant that we have. Right? So that's the initial plan. Now, they said, you know, we see that you know, you're running at 12,000 cubic meters, the plant's designed at 21.5, you really think you can run at 21.5? Well, no. Well, we should test, you know, stress test the plant to see exactly what you can run at, because these are also bits of information and details that'll help us pick the right solution or the right process to deal with the THMs and HAs. Right.
Okay, thanks for that. That helps a little bit. And I hope nobody's watching out there is going to be alarmed by my next question. But I'm hearing there's complications with our different water systems running in different directions and the mixing of the water from Pembroke. Do we have the capacity or the capability here in Petawawa with our present system to stop the flow from Pembroke?
No.
And just have our own system?
No. 25 years ago, I would have said, not a problem. Now, I wouldn't even.
So we have to live with the fact now that we're dependent on that secondary source of water and what the effects it's having on our system. Okay.
So like, because one, the McGregor subdivision is not serviced by the town.
Mm-hmm.
It's serviced by Pembroke. And then in order to keep that water fresh with, you know, enough chlorine in it and that, we have to run it every day a certain amount of time, right? But then in the summertime, when there's, you know, high demand, although it's better now with improvements that we've made over the years, looping and bringing lines like through the high school property and looping it in beside the booster station on beside Boston Pizza. That's made it better, but it's still, we just still can't get that amount of water to that end of the municipality.
I don't want to talk doomsday scenarios here, but I know Pembroke doesn't have a lot of room to expand other than up, but I know Laurentian Valley has a few new subdivisions planned and perhaps more in the future. Can you ever see a day where Pembroke would say, we're tapped out at our end here, providing water to Pembroke and Laurentian Valley? We can't send any your way anymore. You're on your own.
Guess it's always a possibility.
Yeah, I can maybe answer that. There are ongoing discussions with the city of Pembroke and Laurentian Valley with regards to our shared water resources. And although, as Brad mentioned, it does add some complexities to the system, it's a life insurance policy that we should never contemplate getting rid of. And we are looking at infrastructure upgrades in Pembroke and Laurentian Valley to actually have the ability to reverse flow to service those municipalities. If there was an emergency situation, we could help out our neighboring municipalities, and that's really what I think how we should be proceeding. Just a little bit more on the THM and HHA exceedance. Some of those exceedances are because of regulatory changes. So when for the public out there, there's something wrong with the water. That's not the case. If it was 10 years ago, the levels that you were allowed to have of these disinfection byproducts were higher. So we didn't have this issue, but regulatory changes are what's causing this. The town of Deep River has gone through a similar study recently. The same source water, same issue. City of Pembroke draws from the same water. They may have that issue as well. So it's not something to be concerned about as far as water quality. However, we need to meet regulations. So at some point, the ministry, as Brad alluded to, we have to report when we have an exceedance. And at some point, we will have to make plant changes to address those exceedances. And we want to be in the right position. But, I understand the concerns of council. I think it was a great discussion. And certainly if it is something that has to move to 2026, I'll do my very best from a departmental standpoint to expedite the process and get it moving.
Further questions or comments? I'll just add one final thing that, as you said, there's a lot of unknowns with the 3 water systems. There's also a lot of unknowns with the recent announcements of an increase in defense funding, spending, and the effect that's going to have on the garrison here in Petawawa. We've heard numbers tossed around like 400 new troops who are probably not all single individuals. You know, they're going to bring their families. 180 people coming from 4 CDSG headquarters within the next year or 2. There's a lot of unknowns on the expansion needs our town is going to face. And so I know you said it wasn't crisis that you were panic time. I forget the word you used, but I don't think we're in a crisis, but there are some things that could be happening faster than you think. And in terms of us being prepared for expansions, and as you said, these expansions aren't cheap. They're into the millions of dollars. So I think it's essential that we are prepared. And I get where you're coming from in terms of unbudgeted money. The fact that we didn't plan and prepare for this a year ahead, it's just popping up now. But as Councillor Driscoll said, sometimes government moves slowly, and municipal government is no different. Sometimes we see a plan and we look far ahead, and it takes years to implement these plans. So here's an opportunity, and I know it's difficult to nail down when you say budgeted, unbudgeted. The money that we're trying to access here is within the budget from the 2025 year. You're taking a bit from contingency and a bit of unspent money from the water tower construction project. So I know we can get down to the nitty gritty here of what is budgeted and what is unbudgeted. We're not going out to the taxpayers to ask for additional funds. We're not asking to go into debt or to take out a loan. And I think when I sit here at the end of the day and we make decisions, what I think of is what would the residents of Petawawa say? What would the public say if I met somebody in Tim Hortons and said, we took 45,000 from a contingency and 100,000 from unspent funds on a water tower and did a very important study that will help us plan not only now, but for our 10-year capital plan. I would have an easy time justifying that to the member of the public. And if I was that member and I was listening to my explanation, I would think, yes, that's money well spent. So that's just the way I look at it. Okay, I think we've reached the point of no return in this discussion. So I'll read you the motion, and then we'll see if we have enough to move this forward. That council authorizes staff to complete a water treatment plant capacity evaluation in addition to the ongoing disinfection byproducts treatability study and an additional cost of $110,637, with $42,892 being reallocated from the remaining budget for the DBP study, and the remaining $67,745 being funded through the budget underspends from the water tower refurbishment project. I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Coutu. Okay. Am I allowed to second it? Mm-hmm. I'll second the motion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Thank you, Chris and Brad. Oh,
I have one more announcement. Now that we've cleared that out, I just wanted to say congratulations to Brad Sweet, who will be retiring in February of 2027. Brad is given
2027?
2026, sorry.
A lot of time to put a party together.
Sorry, in February of 2026, Brad is given 33 years of dedicated service to a field that is very technical, and the knowledge that he has and what he's passed on to me in the past 5+ years, I can honestly say he's been a fantastic confidant and co-worker, and I can say this as well. Brad serves several municipalities in his role as a senior manager with Aqua, but he is every bit a town employee. This individual has given so much to the town, and I just want to extend my congratulations and my heartfelt thanks, Brad, for everything that you've done for me over the years. It has been an absolute pleasure working with you. I have nothing but respect for this individual. So congratulations to Brad.
Thanks, Chris, for all your kind words with Brad. I'll echo all of those. And Brad, when you do retire officially in February, we'll have you into council and give you a proper send-off you deserve. That was great. Okay? So thanks, Chris and Brad. That was very educational this evening. Thanks for coming in and thanks for giving us all that. Okay, we'll go to councilor reports, and we'll start with Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'll try and make it quick. I'm using my calendar so I don't forget anything. On the 17th of September, I participated in a Zoom meeting with ACCO, with the mayor and the CAO, just to talk about what they provide in terms of housing. Also attended a police services detachment board meeting that same day. On the 24th, a week later, I chaired the Seniors Advisory Committee meeting whereby we talked about the final plans for our seniors event on the 1st of October, as well as participated as a member of the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting on the 24th. On the 25th, I enjoyed tremendously my ride along the Algonquin Trail with the staff team and council members. What a beautiful trail that is. I'm trying to get my husband to lean towards getting a recreation vehicle, so wish me luck. On the 26th, I attended Wine, Chocolate, and Chill, which was one of the seniors' evening activities. And well done. First time I've attended something like that. It was a lot of fun and a lot of knowledge shared, and met some new people, and it was excellent. On the 27th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Gala, and Mr. Mayor, I represented you in the toast and in the in one of the presentation of the awards. It was a fantastic night, and congratulations to all of the recipients. On the 30th, I attended the Truth and Reconciliation that we had down here at the band shell, and much appreciation to everybody who participated and coordinated that, and it was really well done. And of course, on the 1st of October, we had the Seniors Day event, which is on National Seniors Day, which is a time to recognize and acknowledge and thank all of our seniors for the contributions they've made, they continue to make, and they will make in the future. And what started out as, gee, we should get people together for lunch and some fellowship, turned into booths and education and community resources. And thanks to everybody who participated in that. There wasn't this morning, Patricia LeBoeuf asked me what I liked the best, and I said, that's a really tough one, but I'll tell you what I liked was the lunch, because the buzz in that room, the smiles, the people giving each other hugs when you hadn't seen each other, people greeting and shaking hands and meeting one another, that was truly the best for me. And our speakers, fantastic. So well done to them. Thank you very much. And thank you to Judy Hill from the Petawawa Family Health Center for recommending our brain health speaker, Kelsey Tannehill, and Jenna Walsh, who also talked about nutrition. That's the only feedback that we got that I would consider, if you want to look at negative feedback, it was just that the sessions weren't long enough. So that just says to me that everybody really enjoyed it. They had lots of questions, and it was well done. So again, thanks to everybody, and thank you to the Seniors Advisory team, who did an outstanding job and worked really hard on that event. So, merci.
Okay, and thanks for representing me at the Chamber of Commerce Gala. Councillor Carmen.
Thank you, Mayor Service. So on Wednesday, September 17th, I chaired an OPP detachment board meeting. And on Friday, September 19th, I attended the container market for the nighttime version of that. That was really nice. And on Saturday, September 20th, not strictly council related, but I went to a Stone Fence Theater production, and that's really good. If anybody's looking for an entertaining night out, that's they put on a good show. So on Monday, September 22nd, I chaired a library board meeting. And Tuesday I went to the dentist. Thursday, September 25th, I attended the side-by-side ride on the Algonquin Trail with counselors and staff members. That was a lot of fun. And on Saturday, the 27th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Awards Gala. And on Tuesday, September 30th, I attended the Truth and Reconciliation ceremony down here at the at Centennial Park. And on Wednesday, October 1st, I attended some of the Seniors Day activities. So yeah, I listened into that seminar on brain health, and that was really good. Yeah, I figured a few things out that day. And I think that was it. Yeah, I'm getting into the future here, so yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Service. On September 22nd, I attended a library board meeting. On September 24th, I chaired an Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Advisory Committee meeting. On September 27th, I attended for the first time the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. Actually got a grab bag for you, Adam, because I knew you weren't there. But it was an amazing event. It was an incredible time to see a spotlight shone on businesses in our area. So I've missed the event in the past, and I can't believe that, so I won't ever miss it again, because it was extraordinarily well done, for sure. On September 30th, I attended the town of Petawawa's Truth and Reconciliation Day ceremony. On October 1st, I staffed a booth at the National Seniors Day event. So I had the pleasure of speaking with some of the attendees about some of the initiatives and projects that the EDI committee is putting on. And I'll just echo what the deputy mayor said, that it was an extraordinary event. I only crept up to hear the speakers. The Wills seminar was ongoing. Blair Jones was there. And to your comment, when I was at the lunch and making friends, that was everyone's comments. I could have heard about that forever, and it was every single speaker. So that was such a successful event, and I hope that the Seniors Advisory Committee gives themselves a lot of props for that, because it was great to see and be a part of. Thank you for including the EDI committee. And then just today, on October 6th, I attended a committee of adjustment hearing with the deputy mayor as well. And that's me. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Grisman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Turns out with 3 kids under 4, it's tough to get out to too many events. So been a little slower for me. What I will say is had my first experience with Petawawa Minor Hockey since I got to play, now that my son is playing, and it's a very well run organization. I want to say thank you to all the people that do the thankless job of organizing and volunteering for that, because there's a lot that goes into it. And tonight I chaired a committee of adjustment meeting. And I will say good luck to everyone who will be going out moose hunting in the next couple of weeks, because that's where I will be next week, so you won't see me here. And one last thing, it's nice to see all the pumpkin statues and stuff starting to come around town. Everyone should get out and see them, and Rural Rambles coming up, so it's going to be a very good event. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I obviously picked a bad week to go on holidays. There's a lot going on. I did attend the National Seniors Day on the 1st of October. Comments are correct. It was a great event. Things went really well. I heard absolutely no complaints that day, so that was awesome. And then just this past weekend, on a side note, I managed to attend the legendary Lightfoot show held by Festival Hall in Pembroke. Really well done. It was, they had a great turnout. It was pretty much a packed house, so that was great. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Root.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. September 18th, I attended an airport commission meeting. Topics of discussion were financial update and investment overview, operational update, marketing strategy, and along with a new web site design. And we also just signed a hydro lease for 2 years, as they're going to be using some of our property as they upgrade the hydro lines coming through the Petawawa and the Garrison area here, and also along Renfrew County here. So, and that's all I have to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's been 3 weeks, please. I'm going to go fast. Okay, on the 17th, I attended as well with Deputy Mayor Sabern and our CAO, the ATCO. We know them as the ATCO Trailer Company, but they also do modular homes, we discovered. it was great to see not only what they're doing, but all of the industry is doing in terms of modular homes. So it's very exciting what's available out there. And that evening I went to the CNL supplier banquet held at Germania Club. It was great to touch base with the incoming group that's taking over CNL, and as well to bid a fond farewell to the outgoing group. And it was nice to touch base with a lot of the suppliers there. It was amazing how many people were there and how engaged everybody is and what's going on up at CNL. On the 19th, there's Dr. May Ibrahim visited Petawawa, and I had a chance to drive her and her husband around town. They're looking at Petawawa as a potential home, and her spouse is also a doctor. So it's a 2-for-1 special. Hopefully they saw good things both at the Family Health Center and here in the town of Petawawa. And perhaps we'll see them coming to a theater near you soon. On the 20th, there was a pumpkin spice market and container market at the Civic Center. I couldn't believe how many, now the weather was great, but they said between 10 and noon, there had already been 1,200 people on the Saturday go through the doors. So hats off to the organizers of that event. I'm glad you're doing it in Petawawa. On the 22nd, I had a chance to have my first, I guess, official meeting with the new garrison commander. It was great to touch base and talk about all of our shared and cooperative ideas that are ongoing here. On the 23rd, the CAO and I participated in Collaborative Spirit. I think it's the first time they've had it since 2019, where they dress you up in full gear and paint camouflage on your face, and you go out and fire live ammunition. So it was great to blast off a few rounds with the shotgun and pistols and machine guns. And in the afternoon, we saw a full-scale attack on a village where each of us were buddies to an operational soldier, and we had to run behind them and follow them around throughout the attack. Fortunately, they weren't shooting the paint bullets that day. So big thanks to everybody on the garrison who organized that. On the 24th, I attended County Council, and just two or three highlights of that. In behind the Metro grocery store in Pembroke, there's 24 units of social housing. The plan is in place now to have those eventually removed, but first they have to build a new 24 unit facility somewhere in Pembroke to house those individuals. So the presentation that day was all the various locations where this could take place and all the various iterations, a 10 here and a 14 here or a 24 here. And some of them even included 36 and 42. So they're even talking expansion. But that's a bit of a long-term project, maybe 2, 3, or 4 years out, that will all take place. And then the original ones behind the Metro will be either sold to a developer or redeveloped by the county. They're just beyond useful life and beyond feasible repair. EV charging stations, the county is taking a big step. I'm not sure how many, but several at the Renfrew County Place in Renfrew and several at the county building in Pembroke EV charging stations. More further discussion on the CP rail trail that runs from Algonquin Park to Pembroke. The county is working with MPP Deneau and all of his contacts to try and get that turned over to Renfrew County so that can become part of the trail network as well. And the long range plan is to get that and then stone dust that as well. And finally, GP Splinter was awarded the contract to continue the stone dusting all the way from Yates Road up to the train trestle at Deux Rivières. So that's ongoing as we speak and is supposed to be completed before the snow flies, they hope. And that evening, Renfrew County had its second Community Day, which was really well attended. They really went above and beyond this year. They had food trucks and vendors in the parking lot and all kinds of stuff. And they made a big effort to focus on kids and kids activities. So it was really well attended. On the 26th, I opened the Special Olympics High School Soccer Tournament at the Civic Center. On the 30th, Truth and Reconciliation ceremonies were held just behind City Hall. Thanks to everybody who organized, and thanks to the teachers and the students who came. About 150, I think, 150 people were there. And it was a real great educational experience for all those kids to see that. October 1st, everybody's been singing the praises of the National Seniors Day, and thanks to the Seniors Advisory Committee for putting that on. It was fantastic, for sure. October 3rd, there was another doctor recruitment. This time it was a lunch meeting in Pembroke with the mayor and the lead doctor from the PRH, and another doctor from somewhere far across, I can't say too much about it, but from the other side of the world, considering taking his whole family and moving them here to this area to work as a doctor in this area. So it's great to see that there's an interest not only from homegrown doctors, but people from all across the world choosing to come and live here and work here. Yeah, pumpkin people are out. Still 2 more weeks to the Ramble, but it's great to see. Go Blue Jays. Tomorrow they could wrap it up, and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving this weekend. Now I need a motion to go into closed. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that the meeting be closed pursuant to section 239, paragraph 2, paragraph K of the Municipal Act 2001, S.O.2001, C.25 to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board regarding the request for the provision of animal control services on Garrison, Petawawa. I need a motion. Did I already get the motion?
Yep.
Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's how long we've been here. It's carried. We're good? Okay, a closed meeting was held. Oh, welcome back, everybody. A closed meeting was held. Council discussed the request for the provision of animal control services on Garrison Petawawa and provided direction to the clerk. There is nothing further to report. I need a motion for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Donovan, second by Councillor Carmody, that bylaw 1779/25 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Corporation of the Town of Petawawa, bylaw 1779-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on October 6, 2025. This constitutes first, second, and third reading short of bylaw 1779-25.
I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that the meeting adjourn to the call of the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Okay, now, Barry.
Now you know.